Hollywood and the royals, is a strange phenomenon when you think. I've told you many times here on the show, chums, that the mixture is incredible because the Hollywood people like to mix with the royalty and it helps sell their film. When you saw Tom Cruise with that premiere with Catherine, the Princess of Wales and Prince William, and he touched her arm, do you remember that? And broke protocol. That got talked about more than the Tom Cruise movie, but that didn't matter. It got what they needed, you know what I'm saying? That was part and parcel of the deal. Now, where it gets really interesting when you look back in history is just how royals have also been inadvertently used, or could have been. As ever, let me explain. Good to see you today, chums. I hope you're all right. Thank you so much as ever for joining me. Hollywood is a magical place, or it was indeed during the golden age of Hollywood. And as I've often said, I've been lucky enough to meet so many of those wonderful stars with those 7-year contracts that literally gave them the world, as long as they kept their looks, kept their weight, and were popular at the box office. Many people may remember a story, if you're a little bit old enough or just love the movies. In the late 30s, they did this thing, where there was a list, can you imagine? Box office poison. I think I'd be on that, don't you? And the thing is, the box office poison was a list of all the stars. And it had been commissioned by the group of the big, few studios like Warner's, RKO, MGM, 20th Century Fox. And basically this was to knock the stars into place, to basically say, look, the public think you're poison, but we're going to stick with you, manipulation at the highest level. Somebody who had a lot of manipulation with inside the monarchy was none other than Louis Mountbatten. Oh yes, very much a clever man at manipulation and keeping himself in the right place at the right time, Prince Philip has a lot to thank him for his pitch literally inside the royal family. And I mean that with kindness. But you see, as way back, along with his wife Edwina Mountbatten, they were very much of the Hollywood set, alongside Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Charlie Chaplin, Max Sennett, Mae Murray, Mary Pickford, Gloria Swanson, the big names of the silence. And as now many people have seen, lots of footage of them in the silent era because Louis knew the power, as I mentioned before, about Edward VII. He knew the power of the fact that get your moving image out there, get people to spot you, like you, and watch you. Now, where it gets really interesting is, few years down the line, they've still became, very good friends with the modern day stars of the era. As you can imagine, the likes of Lauren Bacall, Humphrey Bogart, people like that. But the older stars, they did retain their friendship with, including this wonderful lady, Gloria Swanson. Now, Gloria, many people just know, literally is Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard. But here's where it gets interesting, because I met Billy Wilder, and what was fascinating talking about Billy was the whole concept of how Sunset was put together. Now, Gloria Swanson, as many people know, was not the first choice, Basically, they thought she was a little bit washed up, and would the public remember her? So Billy Wilder, as I told you, wanted Mae West. Then he also looked to the silent screen star Mae Murray. And then, of course, he wanted originally to have Mary Pickford, America's sweetheart, right? And she was this wonderful character that ruled the 1920s of the world of the silence. Of course, a few years down the line, not necessarily looking like America's sweetheart, but still looking great. Now, according to that source, basically, she was keen on the idea of a comeback. All actresses love the idea. And more importantly, she liked the idea of nuzzling up next to, of course, the Hollywood hunk that was Bill William Holden, right? And again, what was fascinating about that whole thing was Mary Pickford kind of liked the idea. But what happened was, and this is where I find it fascinating, is that Gloria Swanson eventually took on the role. As we know, there were a few contractual problems, of which I'll go into in another episode. If you like the idea, let me know and like and share in the comment below, because it's fascinating stuff. And what happened was that, Gloria then went in on the idea and basically said, well, she could bring in a lot of her famous friends. And the studio said, well, like who? She said, well, British royalty. And that royalty was going to be Louis Mountbatten playing an extra at a party, or indeed the famous gambling scene, where all the waxworks. Do you remember that bit? And that was really the idea. Now, what happened was that Lord Louis was not against necessarily appearing in a movie, but remember, this was just a couple of years after the wonderful reception of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip's royal wedding, 1947. And a couple of years later, of course, they didn't want to make this a negative. And why would it be a negative? Because of the movie, the content, the washed up side of it, that sort of stuff. So sadly, although Gloria kept the role, the promise to include a person of royalty like Lord Louis, well, just slipped through her fingers. But there were bigger problems behind the scenes about that royal connection, of which I'll share with you next time. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.